everyone, and welcome to this webinar. We're going to be looking at personalising SuperCore on Grid for iPad. My name's Daisy Clay and I am the head of the content development team here at Smartbox. I'm a speech and language therapist and I'm also the creator of the SuperCore vocabulary. If you're using Grid 3 for Windows, then that is available as a separate webinar that you can go and view. This one's going to be using Grid for iPad. Okay, so just before we get started looking at personalisation, just to say that the SuperCore vocabulary, if we just have a look at that now on our screens. There we go. So when we talk about personalisation, I'm not thinking about adding hundreds and hundreds of words because all of the vocabulary in SuperCore has been really carefully chosen. A lot of it's based on research. And so what we're really thinking about with personalisation is adding in those really specific words, the words that are personal to the person using SuperCore. So things like names of their family, names of their friends, things that are really special to them, and the things that they're going to want to be able to say using their vocabulary. So I'm going to be showing you all of the personalisation in SuperCore 50, but if I just pop back to Grid Explorer in Grid for iPad for a second, you can see that there are different versions of SuperCore. So we've got SuperCore 50, 30, and the learning grids. I'm not going to talk about the learning grids today, but all of the personalisation I'm talking about is relevant to SuperCore 50 and 30. So I'm going to be using the UK English version, but if you're watching this from somewhere else, your version might look slightly different, but all of the content is really, really similar. Okay, so let's go into SuperCore 50. So I'm going to start by going into the people page. So one of the first things that I would do when I'm personalising SuperCore for someone is go into people and I would change the cell that says my name. So I'm going to go to the three dots in the top right corner. I'm going to go to edit grids and that's going to take me into edit mode. You can tell that you're in edit mode because you get this orange bar across the top. And so now when I select a cell, instead of it saying the word or doing the function like jumping to a grid, when I touch a cell, I get a few options come up next to it. So if I click on edit cell, it zooms in onto that cell so we can see really nicely what we're working with. So I'm going to change the my name to the name of the SuperCore user, and in this example we're going to say that user is called Katie. Okay, I could add a picture here if I wanted to, but actually I'm going to click done, and we can see that just by having that word without the picture, it really stands out on that grid, and also it's a nice way to reinforce that user's name and help them to start being able to recognise it by sight. You'll see that's quite often a focus in school anyways, learning to recognise your name and what that looks like when it's written. So I'm not going to add a picture on this example. The next thing that I would do is go into family. That's over on the right hand side. If I select that, you can see I get some options. This time I get the option to follow jump, which I didn't have before. So I'm going to click on follow jump and that takes me to the family grid. So I don't need to come out of edit mode each time I want to move around the grid set. I can use follow jump. You'll see that there's a little button there that says tip, add the names of family members here. So you'll see those throughout SuperCore. There's quite a few of them, which is just a little prompt to tell you that this is a grid that we're really encouraging you to personalise and add things to. I'm going to choose one of the empty cells here. So this is slightly different now because it's an empty cell. Instead of it just giving me a few options at the top, we've got this big box that's come up asking me what do I want this cell to do, and it's the top one. I want it to write whatever's in that cell up into the message window, and I want it to speak that as well. So choose the top one, Again, just like before, it zooms in. This time I've got my on-screen keyboard that's come up on the iPad, so I'm going to use that. And I'm going to add in the name of the Supercore user, Katie's family. So let's add in her sister, Sophie. Okay, I'm going to just press the arrow to move the keyboard out the way. So we can see that Grid for iPads automatically put a symbol in there for me, but actually that symbol doesn't look anything like Katie's sister, so we're going to use a photo instead. And to do that, I'm just going to tap on the symbol. I'm going to say find picture because I want to find a different picture. And that gives me a few different options. So I could go into symbols, but actually people don't really look like symbols a lot of the time. Photos are a little bit better to use. So I'm going to go to photo library, and that's going to show me photos that I've taken using my iPad. Okay, so here we go, that's the photo I want to use. Let's pop the photo in for me. If I click done, that shows me what it's going to look like. So I'm going to do another example for you underneath. So it's a write and speak cell, and it puts the cursor in the box for me already. So let's put in Katie's brother, James. Again, I'm going to change that picture, so tap on the symbol. It's given me a few different options of symbols, but still none of those really look like Katie's brother James. So let's go to find picture, photo library. I'm going to recently added. There we go, and click done. I'm also going to change the pictures on mummy and daddy, so they look more like Katie's mummy and daddy. So tap the cell, click on edit cell like we did before. This time I don't need to change the label unless I was working with a child or someone using Supercore where they didn't say mummy, they had a different name, so you could change that there, but I'll leave it the same for now. Tap on the symbol. Again, I've got some different symbol options, but none of those look quite right, so let's go to find picture, photo library, and let's choose this one here. Okay, done. And let's, just for completeness, do daddy as well. Edit cell, tap on the symbol, find picture, photo library. Here we go. There. Okay, so what I could have done with these is actually use the camera on my iPad if I hadn't already taken the photo. Let's just have a quick look. If I go to edit cell, I tap on the picture, and there's that option at the bottom, camera, and I could use that. And my advice for if you're using the camera, taking a photo, make sure you get in nice and close. So you see with these pictures, they're all quite close up just of that person's face, so that when they're using an iPad and the cell's quite small, it's easier to see that picture quite clearly. And also, most of these photos are taken with quite a clear background, and that's also really important just to think about, to make sure that that picture can be seen quite clearly. So get really close to the person when you're taking their photo. They won't like it, but it will give you a really nice picture for the cell. Okay, so let's go to finish editing now. Oh, there we go. I'm going to jump home. And then, so that was people that we were in. And I edited family, but also I'd encourage you to go into friends. You've got that little tick box there, add the names of friends here. I'd also be doing the same with school. You've got a tip to add the names of people who are at school or nursery, and that would be the class teacher, any other members of staff. Over on the right hand side, we've got the word teacher, the word speech and language therapist, and I wouldn't recommend changing those, because you might want to use those words themselves, but instead add the names of the teacher and the names of the speech and language therapist over on the left hand side where you've got all of these empty cells. Okay, I'm going to jump back home. The next thing we're going to look at is messages, which is down in the bottom right hand corner, because as well as having lots of individual words and all of the vocabulary and names of things, it's really important to have some quick whole phrases to say. So these might be things that the user is going to want to say more often, so they don't want to have to be forming that message individually every single time. Or it might be something that they want to say really quickly. So if it's an important message like something's wrong or I need help, they don't want to have to be putting all of those little words together. So let's go back into edit mode, top right corner with those 3 little dots, edit grids, and then we're going to edit this how I say yes button. So in the blue column, I'm going to click on how I say yes, and I'm going to edit the cell. So at the moment, when I click edit, you can see on the right hand side that it's going to say, this is how I say yes. That's the sentence that it will say by default. I'm going to change that. So I tap in the box and you can see the cursor starts to flash and the on-screen keyboard comes up. I'm going to delete that and I'm going to change it to, I say yes by looking right. Okay, hide the keyboard. And you can see that hasn't changed what's written on the cell. It hasn't changed the cell label because the little toggle, same as cell label, isn't selected. So I can have the text on the cell stay the same, but it will just say something slightly different or say something a bit more when I select it. And this message is really about when someone's using AAC, it's really important for them to have a way of saying yes and no that doesn't necessarily need to use their device, but just having a way they can quickly say, I say yes by looking right. So when they meet someone for the first time, that person can quickly learn how that person can indicate yes. So let's do that again with how I say no. I'm going to edit the cell, click over on the right hand side, and I'm going to change this to I say no by looking left. And obviously you would change this to whatever that person uses as their way of saying yes or no. Click done. So that's editing a cell that's already there. There are some more on this page that I would encourage you to edit. So in the column where it says me over on the right hand side, my name, that would be an important one. So I'm going to just click in the right hand box. My name is Katie. There we go. Done. And I can carry on editing I live and my birthday as well. Again, those are just phrases that you might want to say a bit more often, might want to say them a bit more quickly when you first meet someone, rather than having to put your message together individually. So there's lots and lots of messages in here that you could edit. I'm going to just show you how to add a new one. So I'm going to add something into the help column. So far we've got some quite general help phrases like something's wrong, I need help, it's important. But think about the person that's using SuperCore. Is there something they might need to really quickly say to get help? So let's go to edit cell. So I've already got the command in there that I need. So I can click in the box and I'm going to say, I need my inhaler. So maybe the person that you're working with has got a medical need that they might need to quickly say something about. So I'll hide my keyboard and let's click on the empty box where my picture is going to go, my symbol, and it will suggest some. So there's a nice picture of an inhaler there. Click done. Okay. And just to show you that there's a lot more spaces that you can personalise as well. So if I go on to help and go to follow jump, you'll see there's lots and lots of gaps there of extra messages that I can add in. Obviously it's one more hit to get to, so you wouldn't want to have really, really important messages hidden away in here. You'd probably want to have those on the top page. Okay, let's finish editing. and think about some more places. Some more places in SuperCore that we might want to personalise, and actually one of those places is places. Okay, so I'm going to go into places, and this is thinking about any places that might not already be in there. So let's have a look. When you first select places, you get some kind of common places that you might want to go to, but thinking about the learner, have they got special places or favourite places that they really, really like to go to that might be quite specific? So let's go to more. And an example for me is one of my favourite places to go is a park, and it's called Bushy Park. So I'm going to go to outside and add it in here. So let's imagine that this is one of Katie's favourite places. Going into edit mode, I'm going to choose a blank space. I want this one to write and speak. And I'm going to type the name of the place in. And I've got a symbol that's been put in there, but that's not really that meaningful for me. And I think I can find a nice photo to go in there instead. So I'm going to select the symbol and go to find picture. And this time I haven't got a photo of it already on my iPad. I'm going to go to web search because this is a place that should have some photos of. Let's hide that keyboard. Okay, tap search. And hopefully that's going to find me some nice photos that I can use on that cell. As you can see, Bush Park is beautiful, which is why it's one of my favourite places. I'm going to choose this picture here, and then it will download. There we go. So I've got a picture. If I click done, I've got my cell there with a nice photo, so it stands out. Okay. So just having a think about those sort of favourite places that the user might want to go to. Shops and restaurants is another one. So if we go into shops and restaurants, you'll see there's lots and lots of places that are already in there. But if there's anywhere that's not in there, that again, the SuperCore user really likes to go to, you've got some spaces to add them in at the bottom. So let's jump home. The next thing that I want to talk about is favourite things. So for this one, we're going to go into topics, and there's a few places here where you might want to add really favourite things of the SuperCore user. So food, I'm going to start there, that's one. If we go into food, you'll see there's a tip here which says add favourite foods here to get to them quickly. And that's in SuperCore 50 only. In SuperCore 30, there isn't as much space on that top grid, so you'd be adding in foods, favourite foods, into the categories that are over on the right hand side. So if they've got a favourite breakfast cereal, you would add that into breakfast. If they've got a favourite meal, you'd add that into meals. So if the person I'm working with, let's think about Katie, if her favourite food maybe is pizza, I know I really like pizza, I could add that in, but first I'm going to see if it's actually already in SuperCore, and I'd really encourage you to do that for any of these really specific words, these favourite things. Just check that it's not in there already. So I'm going to go to the three dots in the top right corner, go to find word, and let's type in pizza and search for that, and that will look for that word all throughout SuperCore and see if it's already in there anywhere. We don't want to add it in again because then it might end up in lots of different places. Okay, so we can see then that pizza is already in there, actually on two grids. It's on meals and eating out, so I don't need to add that one in. So if there were any other favourite foods, again, I'll just do three dots in the top right corner, find word, and check that it's not already in there. Let's jump back, look at some of the other topics. So other favourite things you might think about adding are favourite drinks. So you can see there's lots of space in there to add something if there's a drink that the user really likes that isn't already on there. Other things that we might want to do is add favourite toys and games. So let's go and have a look there. The toys and games grid, you've actually got a section, the left-hand side, which is all toys, and a section on the right-hand side, which is games. In SuperCore 30, we've got a grid for toys and a grid for games. So this might be particularly relevant coming up to Christmas. If the user gets a new game and it suddenly becomes one of their favourites, then you could add the name of it onto this grid here. So let's jump back. I also want to go into religion and just say that if you're working with someone who has a religion and might want to talk about that a bit more, then think about what words you might want to add, and you might talk to the SuperCore Learners family about that. Let's go and have a look. So this is the vocabulary that you get as standard. You can see that it's quite sort of general. You've got a few words for each religion, but you probably want to add to that if that user has got one of those religions. And related to that, what you might also want to do is look at celebration. So we have got some vocabulary in there around religious celebrations, but again, think about that learner, what vocabulary they're going to need to talk about any religious celebrations that they celebrate in their family. Okay. Now let's jump back. And the next thing I want to think about is body. So let's go and have a look at that. I'm going to go into edit mode now, edit grids. When we're in edit mode, we'll be able to see any cells that are already hidden. So over on the right hand side, you can see there's a hidden cell called privates, and that's got private body parts in. And there's also a hidden cell called puberty. And again, that's hidden because it won't be relevant to all people using SuperCore, but it's there for when it is relevant. And let's follow jump. So we've got some very kind of medical vocabulary in there under body parts, but I would encourage you to work with the person that's using SuperCore, work with their family, find out what words they use to talk about things at home, and then you can edit the vocabulary on this grid, just as I've explained how to do already. Okay, I'm going to jump back. Okay, so those are there just to be aware of. Okay, let's have a look. Then I'm going to jump back. And the next one to mention is the health topic. So follow jump. Let's have a look at that. Again, you've got one of those little tick boxes there, which is saying you can add personal health words onto this grid. So if the user themselves has got any health conditions, anything that they might want to talk about, you can add the words here. Or if there are other children in their class who've got medical conditions that the children might want to be talking about, or have words to use for, then you can add those onto this grid. Okay. So the next grid is one of my favourites. I'm going to go to jokes. Follow jump. So you can see a lot of the personalisation in SuperCore is happening in this topics area. So quite a lot of the specific words go here. But jokes is quite a nice one to think about personalising or adding to. There are already quite a few jokes already in here, a selection of my favourite worst jokes, but you can add your own in here as well, particularly coming up to Christmas. In the UK we have Christmas crackers, and they always have terrible jokes in, so you can think about adding those onto this grid as well. Right, I'm going to finish editing and jump home and just talk to you about the keyboard grids in SuperCore before we finish. So we've got a spelling jump cell in the bottom right corner. When I go to that, the keyboard that I get taken to by default is actually a phonics keyboard. So when I select any of these letters, I can hear the sound that those letters make. So when I select the letter D, I'll get the sound D. So I'll hear that. When I select O, I'll hear O. G, I'll hear G. So unfortunately we can't hear the sound coming through in this recording, but if you try that on your iPads you'll hear what I mean. So I can use this keyboard to spell out words, and I'm just going to quickly show you one of my favourite features of Grid for iPad whilst we're on this grid. And earlier on when we were looking for words, we looked for the word pizza, but I'm not in edit mode anymore. What I can do from this keyboard grid is use the find word cell over on the right hand side. And what that will do is look for the word in SuperCore, but then help me to find it myself. So it will take me through the route to get to it. And that means that you can go into the keyboard grid, look for a word, and you can do that with the SuperCore user, and then they themselves can go through the route to get to the word. So they can select topics, animals, and dog. There we go. And it's just really nice to use that spelling grid. If you are looking for a word and you're with the SuperCore user, it's really nice to do that with them. So it reinforces literacy, and that when we're looking for words, words are made up of letters, and that we have to spell those letters, those words out with letters to get there. Okay, but what I was going to say about personalisation in the keyboards is that there are a number of different keyboards that you can choose. So this is the default keyboard, and the idea of having a phonics keyboard is that it gives an opportunity for the learners to try out early exploration of letters and sounds, see what sounds different letters make. Once the learners got to a point where they maybe have some early literacy and they're able to spell all of those simple words, they might want to move on to a different keyboard, because as you develop your literacy, words become more complex and you can't always sound them out. So let's have a look at the other keyboards in the bottom right corner. You can see there's quite a few different options of keyboards. We've got the letter sounds keyboard, which is the default one. Letter names. When I select any of those letters, I'm going to hear the name of the letter. So I would hear D, O, G instead of the phonics for those letters. Alphabetical is just going to be the same layout, but I won't hear letter sounds or letter names. I'll just have the same alphabetical layout. And then I've got QWERTY sounds. So if you've got someone who might already be familiar with seeing the QWERTY layout, then you might want to choose this one instead for familiarity. Jump back, and you'll see as well that all of the different keyboard options come with an option to have prediction cells. So that letter sounds keyboard with prediction looks like this. But as I start selecting my letters, then I start getting predictions up along the top. Okay. So if I want to personalise SuperCore to change one of the keyboards, I'm going to jump home, I'm going to go into Edit, and I'm going to select the cell. Instead of saying follow jump, I'm going to edit the cell because I want to change where it's going to jump to. On the right hand side, I can see it says jump to another grid, and then next to where it says grid, it tells me the name of the grid it's going to jump to. If I select that, I can choose a different grid for it to jump to. And all of the keyboard grids in SuperCore have got the word keyboard in. So if I click in search and type in keyboard, then all of the different keyboard options come up, and you can see a little preview of what they look like too. So I'm going to choose the ABC phonics with prediction, click done, finish editing, and then just test that one out. There we go. So instead of jumping to phonics without prediction, it's now jumping to phonics with prediction. Okay, so anytime I select spelling now, it will take me to that keyboard grid instead. So what I've been looking at with you today is actually in the SuperCore manual as well. If you want to go through that yourself, you can download the manual from our website, and it's on page 23 to 25, so you can go through the different areas of SuperCore and personalise it if you want to. So we're coming to the end of the webinar now. I will pause and see if there are any questions that have come up through online chat as I've been going through. I think we've got one question that has been sent to us, so I will go through that, which is when I was right back at the beginning in Grid Explorer, was about the different symbol sets. So over on the right hand side you can see I've got Supercore PCS. What we were looking at was Supercore with widget symbols, but if you're using a US grid set, let's just show you, then you would have symbol sticks. But let's just show you how to get this PCS version. So when I'm in Grid Explorer, I go to the three dots in the top right corner. I go to Add Grid Sets. I need to be connected to the internet for this, so it's going to bring up all of the options. If I go to Symbol Communication Grid Sets, Supercore, and I choose Supercore 50, if I scroll down to the bottom, I'll see alternative versions. So that will show me any other versions in different symbol sets. So here you can see it says Supercore 50 PCS, and then I can click on Add, and it's come up with a, let's cancel out of that, and it has come up with a little 2 because I've already got that one in here, but that's how you would add a different symbol version of Supercore. Okay, so that's about it for today. If you have got any questions, then feel free to get in contact with us, and we've got our contact details here for you. Do drop us an email or get in contact through our Facebook community. Thank you very much for watching the webinar today.